I have to confess something to you this morning. I have a hard time preaching on this text, personally, because this is my father's favorite text in the whole Bible. And I watched him die over a period of 3 years with 4 strokes. The 4th one killed him, but for most of that time he was confined to a chair with a magnifying glass that he used to read his Bible. And he had much to be anxious about. He wasn't earning any money. He wasn't able to care for his family. He didn't know whether his kids were going to go to college. He didn't know if he was going to survive another week. But he would murmur to me with gnarled speech, sagging jaw, "Be anxious for nothing. What you should eat, what you should drink, what you should put on." And I would hear him say that, and I would just be amazed, because he wasn't anxious, and I was. But he clung to this text to the very end of his life. Jesus said, "Consider the ravens. They neither sow nor reap." Have you ever seen a raven go into a field with a plow, or using his beak to furrow the fields, and then watch him the next day with a mouthful of seed, dropping it here and there in the furrows, and when he was done, covering it up with his wings, and then flying up to the nearest tree to wait for the rain to come and the seed to germinate to provide food for himself, and then come afterwards and reap the harvest and take the fruit of that harvest to a barn and fill up the barn for future contingencies? Of course not. Jesus says, think about the raven. He doesn't sow, he doesn't reap, he doesn't have a storehouse or a barn, but God feeds him. And how much more value are you than the birds? And which of you, by worrying, can add 1 cubit to his stature? Worry all you want, you won't add an hour to your life. Worry all you want, you won't add an inch to your height. Those things are beyond our control. If you're not able to do these things that are the least, why would you be anxious for the rest? Or think about the lilies, he said, how they grow. They don't toil. They don't spin. Did you ever see a lily go to a factory and punch in his time card? He says, have you ever gone out in the garden and see the lilies working at a loom with the shuttle flying in and out between the yarn in order to produce a beautiful garment with which to be clothed? No, look at the lilies. They don't toil. They don't spin. But I say to you, even Solomon in all of his glory was not arrayed like one of these. If then God so clothes the grass, which today is in the field, tomorrow is thrown in the oven, how much more will he clothe you, O you of little faith? Don't seek what you should eat, what you should drink, or have an anxious mind. For all these things the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knows that you need them. Now, Jesus is not saying, as the rich fool had said, be at ease, eat, drink, and be merry. Tomorrow you must die. Don't worry about being productive. Don't worry or be concerned about providing for your households. Don't be concerned about any of these things. Just lay back, take it easy, and God will take care of you. Now, this is not some giant welfare program that God is offering here through the lips of his Son. Of course we're supposed to work. Of course we're supposed to be productive. But the productivity to which we are called is not to be carried out in the midst of this paralyzing fear and anxiety. That's the point that he's making. All these things the nations of the world seek after, and your Father knows that you need them. But seek the kingdom of God, and all these things should be added unto you. At this point, Jesus is summarizing some of the things that he teaches elsewhere, including in the Sermon on the Mount, and he's talking about priorities. And elsewhere he says, seek first, protos, first in the order of importance, the kingdom of God. Everything else is secondary. I've heard people say cynically, money isn't everything, it's the only thing. I've heard them say, money isn't everything, but it's way ahead of whatever's in second place. No. What's in first place in the value system of God is seeking his kingdom. And dear ones, unbelievers don't seek after God. They don't seek his kingdom. The seeking of the kingdom of God is the activity of the converted person. When you were converted, it wasn't because you were seeking after God, but because God found you, and God turned your life inside out. And from that moment, the rest of your life should be busily engaged in seeking more and more and more of the things of God. That's what discipleship is. That's what sanctification is involved in. As Edward said, and I quoted him recently on this same point, the seeking after the kingdom of God is the main business of the Christian life. And Jesus says here, seek the kingdom of God. All the rest of this stuff will be added unto you. And again, how tenderly does he speak here? When he says, do not fear, little flock. Do not fear, little flock. Do you know who the little flock is? You and me. We're his lambs. We're his little flocks. He's not yelling at us here. He's not rebuking us here. He's comforting us here. He says, don't be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. That's my legacy for you. That's your inheritance. He's not just giving me the kingdom, Jesus is saying, but what pleases my Father is to give you the kingdom.
The Lord trieth the righteous, but the wicked and him that loveth violence his soul hateth. Upon the wicked he shall rain snares, fire, and brimstone, and an horrible tempest. This shall be the portion of their cup. For the righteous Lord loveth righteousness. His countenance doth behold the upright.